So this will bring us to day 3 as we continue deconstructing the lies that we have all been told all of our lives. God spoke to the waters that are under the heavens, or firmament, to gather together, allowing dry land to appear. He called the dry land earth, and the gathered waters were called seas. God spoke to the earth and told it to bring forth grass, herbs, seeds, and fruit trees, and the earth obeyed. God declared it good, and the evening and the morning marked the third day. This is paraphrased from Genesis chapter 1, verses 9 through 13. Now, God created the dry land and the seas on day 3. He also created grass, herbs, seeds, and fruit trees. So, with the seas being created, what controlled the sea? If we recall, Proverbs 8:29 tells us that God set boundaries for the seas. However, science would tell us that it is the moon that controls the sea. Well, we have a problem here because the moon has not been created yet. So, who are we going to trust here? Science telling us that the moon, which is not yet created, controls the seas, or the scripture that says God set the boundaries for the seas? Now, I choose to trust and believe every word that comes from God. As we move on to day 4, we're going to discover several other things that dispute our current model. We've read over these passages our entire Christian lives and have never connected the dots. It's because of how thoroughly we have been programmed to believe the scientific narrative that we read these scriptures and then think that they fit with what it is we think we know. So, it's only when we decide to take a step back and look at Scripture for exactly what it says that we can begin to unlearn the false teachings of science falsely so called and begin to discover the truth of God's beautiful creation. Let's take a look at day 4. God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament, and let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years." He declared that they would be lights in the firmament to give light upon the earth. Then God created 2 great lights. The greater or the brighter light, the sun, was created to rule the day, and the lesser or not so bright light, the moon, was created to rule the night. He made the stars also. Then God set the lights in the firmament to give light unto the earth. God declared his creation good. The evening and the morning marked the 4th day. And that's paraphrased from Genesis chapter 1, verses 14 through 19. Now, there is a lot to unpack in that passage. This section of Scripture provides a tremendous amount of evidence that what we think we know concerning our cosmos is seriously wrong. It has been made plain in Scripture. Now, we must learn to trust Scripture the way we say we do. It's either true or not. There is no gray area when it comes to the words of Scripture. So what does day 4 tell us? For starters, it tells us that the sun and moon were created on day 4, which is after the earth was created on day 1. Now wait just a second here. Science tells us that the earth is hung on the gravity of the sun and that it orbits around the sun while spinning 1,000 miles an hour. So, let me get this straight. The earth was hung on the gravity of the sun and orbiting the sun before the sun was created? I don't think that's possible. Here's what Scripture has to say. He stretches out the north over empty space and hangs the earth on nothing. Job 26:7. Now no, that does not mean that God caused the earth to float in space. It means that the earth is not hung on anything, including the gravity of the sun, because the earth was set upon pillars by God himself. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he set the world on them. Taken from 1 Samuel 2:8. Now many scholars will use the verse in Job and say, "See, the earth is hung upon nothing, just like our spinning ball floating through space." However, this is some serious mental gymnastics. When you look at all of the scriptures that have been presented thus far, and you look at them in context, it is easy to see that earth is hung upon nothing because it is set upon pillars, much like we discussed in the previous episode. Saying the earth is hung on the gravity of the sun is an intentional inversion of scripture, and I'm going to touch more on that in future episodes. Then we have the issue of the moon that we touched on earlier. The moon wasn't created until day 4 as well, yet the seas were created first. And we know from the earlier passage in Proverbs 8:29 that God set the boundaries for the sea. But science tells us that the moon controls the seas.